Hello and welcome to lesson number 6 of this our free online coding lessons from Superjcybs Business and Services, brought to you by me, Jerry Batunde. In this lesson, we will be looking at dealing with as much HTML code of our final website as we can. So, in just an hour, we will be trying to write the HTML part of our final web page. But before that, why not get onto my desktop and then we start, and I can also show you what I'm talking about. Voila, and welcome to my desktop today. Today we'll be looking at dealing with as much HTML code of our website as we can. Just as I promised you, we'll be using 1 hour less for this lesson. And so I will be taking you through exactly what we'll be building. Here we are with our final web page. I believe by now you have seen this web page before. Every functionality is there working, and we will be building exactly this. Now, one thing that I want us to be looking at is that if I look at the page source, I will have all the HTML part of this code or this website. And so this is what we will be typing today. And as we go along, looking at the timing, I will be copying, because I can just select any of this code and then copy and then paste in my code editor. So when I look at the time and how we are moving, I will decide to either copy and paste the code, but trust me, I will make sure that I explain everything to you detailedly. Don't forget that in the previous lesson, we had looked at some other part of HTML that deals with the divs, that deals with spans and creating links. We also looked at adding text and formatting them. We looked at adding images to our web page, and then we looked at adding forms as well as adding tables. We also looked at adding lists and a whole lot of them which I have not mentioned on this list. Nonetheless, in this edition, because we will be coding exactly a practical website, I will be taking the opportunity to explain to you exactly what lines of code are behind this UI that we are seeing. You could also go onto the deployed site and then check, just click on the website and go to view page source, and then you can see the HTML code, so that whilst you are typing and then you find any errors, you can go there and refer and then correct yourself. So to begin with, I'm going to open VS Code. I'm going to open my VS Code, and then whilst VS Code is opening, I will create a new folder on the desktop for our final web project. So the project folder is going to be here, and then I'm going to call it final project. And then inside of it, what I'm going to do is that, just like we learned in the previous lesson, we will be creating our first file, which is the index.html. So the only thing I have to do is just right click on an empty space, go to new, and then test document, as if I'm creating a notepad file. And then over here, what I'm going to do is give it a name, and the name, like I said, by default is index.html. But over here we have .txt because it is a notepad file or a rich file. I'm going to remove the txt and then add html. I will be asked if I really want to change the file extension, and then I'm going to say yes. We have our code, and it is showing exactly in html or as a web file. That is why you are seeing it having the Chrome icon. Now that we have opened our file our VS Code. We have our VS Code opened here. What I'm going to do is to just launch our code. I can just cancel this or close that. Just drag our project folder onto VS Code. And once I get it like this, VS Code is going to open our project folder for us. Okay, so now that we have our folder opened in VS Code, I can click on this and we can have our index.html opened. I'm going to try something simple because it is an HTML file, and those of you with VS Code, I said in the previous lesson that we can install an extension called live server, and with the live server we can be able to open our code exactly over here by request Dev. And I said that with that we can just come here and click go live, and once we click on go live, our code is going to open inside our browser for us. Once we make a change with our code, the change is effected right on our web page for us to see in the final project. Now this is the old one and this is the new one that we are creating. Okay, I'm going to open it side by side. For those of you who have joined from lesson 5, I told you that we can just start our HTML code by typing HTML. I can just come here and select 5, and then here we have a boilerplate right for us. So if I just refresh this page, you realize that the title has taken effect over here, and this is instant. I'll just stop the live server and then open it again. Okay. The first one, it was telling us that there was nobody, so a whole lot of things. So let me see if things are live now. This is a test, test, and it is showing. So here we are. We already have our doc type created here in our boilerplate. We have the HTML tag. Once I click on the opening, it highlights the closing for me also. And then from here, the lang en tells you that this our code is written in English, so language English. And the meta information, we have the charset, which is giving us the Unicode, and then we have the HTTP equiv. Those of you who followed from lesson number 3, you would understand most of these things. And our viewport, which makes this line of code itself is responsible for making our page responsive. So as we get along, I will also get you more of this information. Now our title is not going to be document. We are going to change it to free coding lessons by Superjcybs. The next thing that I would want to add, those of you followed from lesson number 3, when we're dealing with meta information, I'm going to add another metadata, which is going to be the author. So over here I'll say meta, and then the name is going to be author, and then the content is going to be my name. Okay, so over here I'm just closing that, and as you can see, it is not showing in the body. I'm duplicating this one, and then over here I'll change this to description. The description, I can use it to write what my website is about. So I will say this is the final project of a fully functional business website from Superjcybs Business and Services. There's another thing that I want to add, and so I'm going to duplicate this code, and then I'll say that keyword. This is for SEO purposes. So for keyword, I'm going to give keywords to it. So when somebody goes on Google and types Superjcybs, I want this website to show off. If somebody says free, if somebody types free on Google, I want this website to show. I'll add another one, free coding, and I'll add free coding lessons. Here we are, and a whole lot of them. You can add a whole lot of keywords that you want your website to be ranked for, and over here in the keyword section. Okay, moving forward, I'll just move quickly and straight into our body session. So I'm going to delete this dummy test here, and then what I'm going to do very quickly is to start our code. The first thing is that we are going to give it a very big tag. This one is from HTML5 called main, and it is like a bucket for almost every code, all of your code. And then once we are done with the main, inside of the main, I'm going to put all the rest of the code here. So I'm just going to open it like this. And then the first one that I'm going to start with is the header session. It closes by itself. And then inside of this header, I'm going to use another tag called the nav, because we first want to create this nav bar over here. In HTML5, we have a semantic tag called nav, and it is used for creating nav bars. And then inside of this nav bar, nothing has happened here. Nothing has happened here, because all of these ones are just tags. I've not put in any content. So the first content I'm going to put in this nav bar is an input. I'm going to put an input here, and then the type I want it to be a checkbox. So I'm going to say checkbox. You could see that over here. Now we have a checkbox here. This is exactly what I've done. Amazing. Once I click on it, it is checked, and then that unchecked. That is what I've done here. The checkbox. We are going to give it an ID just to mark it. Yeah, a unique ID. IDs can only be once. You can only have one item with that ID. You can't have two items with the same ID. Those of you who followed with lesson number 5, I showed you. And please note that I've added all the lessons just at one location on our website, superjcybs.com/features. There you can get all our free lessons there, all at one place. Please take note. I'm going to add another element here called the label. I'm going to add another element called label, and then for this label, I'm going to use it for. So it is for the ID that I have created over here. So for the ID, and then the ID, I gave the ID as check, and this label is going to have an icon. So I'm going to bring in an icon. I will say class. That's how the icon has it. And when you come onto the main website, this is what I'm talking about. So when you check here, we have this icon. This is an icon. It is not just lines, it is an icon. And this is it, FAFA hyphen bars. That is the icon. And one thing that you're going to be doing is that we have to bring in a particular link, or we have to add some particular items to make us see this icon, because this is coming from Font Awesome, and Font Awesome, we have to import it onto our web page before we can be able to use Font Awesome. Okay, so I will copy their CDN, that is their link for using font icon, and then I will bring it onto this page and then use it for the meantime. And this is over here. It should be in the head section. So this is the Font Awesome link. As you can see, it is right here, Font Awesome. It is right here, Font Awesome. But because I am not connected to the internet, it is not going to work. I'm not connected to the internet, so it is not going to work. So I'm going to use an offline font awesome. I have their offline. You can download their offline um, files so that you can be able to use it even when you are not connected to the internet. So I'm going to bring them here, and this is this one and this. So this and this is what I'm going to use for my font awesome. I'll just copy it. Let me go to my folder, my project folder, which is this one, and then I'll create, I'll just paste it here. So I have this CSS, and it is the CSS of font awesome. As you can see, font awesome. So they have their styles, and they have a particular font that they use to write or to design their icons. That is why I have to bring this font also. But anyways, all of these things that we use for our code, we put them, or we call them as assets. So I'm going to put all of these things into a folder called asset, and now I'm going to link this onto our code that we are writing. So over here we are, and for that one also, it should be inside of the head section. So I'm going to bring a link, and it is going to be a style sheet link, and the ref, which shows you the source of the particular thing you want to import, is here. So I'm going to bring it this way, and I'll go into the assets folder, into the CSS folder, and then I'm going to use the font awesome CSS. So once I do this, just look here. You realize that we now have the icon next to our checkbox. So that is what we just accomplished. The only thing that you have to do is to download their offline, files. That is the CSS and the font also. And then when I just came here, the only thing that I have to do is to link this up to my web code. Those of you who joined me with lesson 3 and lesson 4, when I was talking about bringing in script and CSS, you will understand this. So if you don't understand what we have done here, you just have to visit lesson number 3 or lesson number 4 for more details, because there is nothing difficult here. The only thing I have to do here is to link it up, and I said for the link it should be inside of the head tags or the head element. That is what I did. So now we have our icon showing, and it gives us the go ahead to continue with our code. I'm going to have another label just under this label, and then this one I don't really need this, but I'm going to give it a class, and then I'm going to call that class logo. For the class, I can have many elements with the same class name, so that one bear in mind. And with this logo, I'm just going to bring in my logo right here. So the first thing that you have to do is also to make sure that your logo is also inside of your assets, because every other file that we are going to be using creating our website, we are putting them inside of our asset. So I'm going to copy our logo, my logo, I'm going to copy it and then paste it inside of this my files, or my asset files. So let's go to what we are doing. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to bring in an image. Those of you who joined us with lesson number 5, you would understand how we imported logos, images. So we do it with the img tags, and then the source is going to be where my logo is located. So over here I'll just go into my asset, and then this is my logo. And then once I do this, my logo is right here showing on our new web page. Okay, and then I'll give a alternative name, that is in case the person is not on the internet and is not able to see our photo, what text do you want to show the person? So I'm going to put this one over here, and I'm going to say Superjcybs logo. So the person will see that this place there's supposed to be a logo there, but the logo is not showing. Now, for those of you who have not seen this before, you visit a particular website, and then you realize that instead of seeing the image, there are some things like a box thing, and the picture itself is not showing. It is because of this. uh So once the picture is not showing, the only thing you realize is that you see a name there. There's a name written over there, and that is what we are talking about. Let's just continue quickly because we have a whole lot of things to code. The next thing that I'm going to do is to write this part of the code, this home, about this ones. And with this, we were using the list. Those of you who followed in lesson 5, you understand how to insert list, and that is what I used for that codes that we saw there. So let me just give you a list, and this time around I'm going to use a UL, which is unordered list, and every list item is going to come with a link. Those of you who join lesson 5, you understand this. And then the class name, I'm going to give it as menu item, and then I'm also going to give the href. Because it is a link, I should tell it where the link is going. Because I don't have the link already, I'm just going to put hash there for the meantime. And then the test. So what you should know is that I could have just put in this li is for list items, and in this list items you are going to put links, because when you check here, once somebody clicks on this, it takes the person somewhere, meaning these things are links. So that is why we are putting links over here. Good. I'll bring the code back. And then for the list item, better still, let me just remove this and then bring the list item. Let's say home. The first list item we saw here is home, and then now when we come here we can see our home here. Okay, so I will duplicate this. How many of it do we have? We have 6 of them, so I'm going to duplicate it 6 times. Now I have 5, and then the last one is going to be 6. And then for the first one is home, the second one is about, the third one is services, the fourth one gallery, and then we have team, and then we have contacts. Okay, so now when we look onto what we have done so far, we have the list here, and they are coming with some bullets and all those things. We will work on that. Now we are only writing this HTML part. So most of the styles, when we get to CSS, we will work on the looks. But for now, it is only about the text, the markup. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to put all of these things into links, as links. So that is what I'm doing. Amazing. So that is exactly what I have done here. Now I've made all of them as links. That's why you will realize that when I position the cursor, it becomes a pointer, and then they are underlined, and then the color has changed. Yeah, because they are now links. They are links because of the anchor tags that I used over here, and it is both directing to a particular place. And then there's another thing that we call active. So I can put an active here, and then you realize, okay, once we get into the CSS, I will work on that. Now that we are done with the links, the next thing I'm going to put on is this particular portion, which says greetings from Superj, welcome to the free, and this button. That is what we are going to be doing next. And with that, I'm going to go out of the UL, the list, but still inside of our nav. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a tag called section, because it is one section. And then over here, I'm going to divide these sections into, I'm going to divide these sections. So in this first division, I am going to put an H1 tag which says greetings from Superjcybs. Good. Let's see it happening on our page. Here we are. It is H1. And then under it we have a P tag which says welcome to our free coding lessons online with Jerry Robertson there. Okay. Our free online coding lessons. Amazing. Like this. Sure. And then once we are done with this, we are moving on gradually. So you can see this one also showing here. We are moving on gradually. And then under it, we have this button. So you are going to create the button. You are going to create a button here. And so with the button to the tag is button. So here is the button, and then it says give a donation. So let's look at it. Here we are with the button, give a donation, but when I click it, it is not going anywhere because it is not a link. So now I have to make it also a link, and that is what I'm going to do next. So I'm just going to wrap this button with an anchor tag A, which means that I'm going to make it a link. Sure. So over here, I'll just cut this part and then paste it inside of the opening anchor and the closing anchor, and then we will have this thing also turning into a link. Sure. But I have to declare where I want it to go, so that I will also do later. So I'll put a hash over here. Amazing. And this is all that we have on our nav, this particular section, the first section of our page. And so we are done with everything that we had over there. I will take you quickly to the about section, where we have this about the company and this stats. So that is the next thing that you are going to be writing now. Let's go and then look on our page. So now we are done with the nav, we are done with the header. I will quickly move to the about section. And with the about section, we are going to use a div. So inside of this div, I'll give an h3 over here, and then I'll say about the company, and then we can see it there. Under it, I have a p tag which says key features of our company. That is it. So over here, I'll put an ID here of about. This ID is just that I can be able to call this section whenever I need it. So now that I've given this part an ID called about, I'm going to copy this about and then put it here as part of the hash. And then once I click on this part, it will bring me to this about section. So you realize that when I come here and I click on the about, it brings me here. It is simply because I have put in some hash and then some ID over there. I believe it's quite understanding. Sure. So let's move on. I'll create a div here. I'll create a div, and then I'll create another div inside of the div. Now the div is just a container, and so inside of this div, I'm going to put in, when we check on the main thing, inside of, we have the about the company, we have the key features, and then we have these 4 items. So I've created a big div so that I'll put in these 4 items, and that is what I'm going to do here. And each of these items is also going to have its separate div. So just like I said, each of these key features, we are going to have a separate div for them as well. And so that is why I'm going to put in a div. This one's a main div. I'm going to put another div inside of it. Now, I showed you something about classes in the previous lesson, and so I'm going to put in some classes as I do these things, so that as we get to the looks, the CSS section, I can be able to target them and then work on them individually. I'm going to add them now, and then throughout it I will be adding them when as and when I want to add some designs to them or some looks to them. Over here in the header section, we have to add very nice look so that it looks like this instead of looking like this. So I'm going to put some classes so that I can be able to target them. Once we get to CSS, I will tell you why we are putting the classes. But I don't want us to go and then once we are done with it, then we come back during the CSS to add the classes to it. It will be a lofty thing to do. So I'll just go through what I've done before and then add the classes for those that I haven't added, and yet I know that I will need to make some designs on them. Okay, so over here for this label too, I would want to design it so that by default it will not show, but it will only show when the screen is very small. So when the screen is small, then we have this, but when the screen is large, we don't see it. So I will put a class here so that I can be able to target it and then work on it during the CNN section, CSS session. So for now, as I put the classes, you will not see any changes. Nothing will happen to it unless we get to the CSS section, and then I will be able to use the classes to get them and then work on them. That is what it means, or that is what we'll be using them for. So over here, I'll put an active for one, an active in the sense that by default this one is selected. You see, it is all transparent, but once I click on it, it becomes shaded. So once it is clicked, it becomes active. This one is active, that is why it is has a background. That is what it means. So with this one, I'll use this active to cause that changes, and for whichever one we click on, I will make it have this active instead of where it was before. Okay, over here too, I will be doing some editing because as you can see, it was supposed to be in the middle, but over here we are having it on the left side. So I'll add a class here so that in due time I can be able to give it the designs or change its looks. So over here with this ID also, I would want to put another class. I'll give it a class also, and the class is also going to be about. Good. And that is what I'm talking about. Now that we are here inside of the features, for these features also, I'm going to give them a class, and then I'll say about __ features. And then for every single feature, we are going to have another class name for them also. So I'll say class name about __ feature. The first one is class name __ features, and now it is the inner ones are class name __ feature. So there's a difference. I believe you have taken note of that. And because there are 4 features, I'm going to duplicate this 4 times. And then inside of everyone, we are going to have number 1. You can see that instead of everyone, we have an icon, a heading, and then some text. So first is the icon, and the icon, as I showed you, we use the I and then a class name. And then for the class name, I will bring the icon of Fafa desktop. And then you see it showing over there, Fafa desktop, and boom, it is now done. It is just one. And then for the heading too, I'm going to use a p tag, and then I'll say for the first one is responsive. But you know one thing that I can do, I could just do this. I'll just open this one, open that one. Okay, good. Let me just give you a very nice way since to work on these things, especially repeating works. So I'll just click on the I'll just press down the Alt key and then click here, click here, click here, so that I select all the 4 at the same time. And then once I press enter, it will be for all of them. Since they all have the same preamble, first I'm going to put an icon. So even though each of them is going to have a separate but for now, because I'm working on all of it at the same time, I'm going to use the same name for them. So you can see that we have 4 of the icons here. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to come down and then give the heading. And then the heading, I said I'm going to use a p tag to do that also. And then under that, I'm going to put the test, which is also going to go with a p tag. And so I'll say look onto us. I will just use lorem. It is very easy and then very quick to try it. And then as you can see, I have icon, topic, and then the test, icon, topic, test for all 4 times. So the next thing that I'll have to do is just to come here and then change the icons. So for the first one we use desktop. For the second one we are going to be using let me check it here, hat. Good. We are going to be using hat. So I'll use hat over here, and then immediately I change it, it has taken effect. And then the third one, it looks like a diamond, and then the fourth one is a certain cog. So I'll change the third one to diamond, and then the fourth one to a cog. And then you realize that the changes have been effected. And this last one is not responsive. It's all supposed to be support, and this one is supposed to be design, and then this one is supposed to be passion. That is why I use the hat. So that is also for it. You realize that I've changed it. For the lorem, once you are creating yours, you put in your content over there. But for here, what I'm doing is that I'm just using a dummy test. So the dummy test is what we are using now. Amazing. So it looks like we are now done with the first part of the about section. The next thing I have to do is the statistics. So I'm going to create the statistics next. So looking into the statistics level, I will be adding comments just so that we can see which part of the code we are looking at. Maybe if you have a long list of code to look at, statistics, right? Sure. So I will just have to come into the statistics session. But now what I am doing is that I am adding comments onto each part of the code so that I will be able to easily identify which part of the code I am looking at. That is what I'm doing now. So over here, I can put a comment here, and then this one, I will say it is the header. So let's go quickly into the statistics. I'm going to use a div here with a class name statistics. So like this, statistics. I have a div with a class name of statistics. And with the statistics also, if you realize, we have 4 different parts inside. So I'm going to create 4 divs with the class name statistic stack. So like this, statistics __ stat, like that. And I'm going to duplicate it 4 times. And both of it is going to have the same thing. And over here also, just like I did for the about, I'm going to put a span here, and then the span is going to have diverse numbers, and then under the span I'm going to have a p tag, which is going to have some description. Okay, so if you can, as you can see here, we have both, all of it having the same thing, but I'm just going to change the numbers quickly, like this, and then I'm going to change the descriptions also. You can just do it as you want. You can also choose not to use the statistics on your page, and nobody can nobody can argue you. So it is just up to you to decide if you want to use it. No problem. If you don't want to use it, you can just forget it. So here we are. Once we get to the CSS level, we will change the looks of it, and that is how we end the statistics side or section. Now we move to our services. So with our services also, I'm going to put a comment for us to know that it is the services part that we are working on. And with that one also, we are going to have a bigger div. Don't forget that with the div, we could just use the sections also, and it is also allowed. So we are going to have a bigger div, and then inside of this div, we are going to have another div. Okay, with this div, I'm also going to give it an ID. Don't forget. So the ID is going to be services, and then I'll also add a class name to it, which is also services. Good. That one is just for CSS. But the ID, we are using the ID because we want somebody to be able to click on this, and then the person is automatically taken to the services section. Okay. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give it a title, and for the title also I'm going to give it a class name of services underscore underscore title, and then inside of it I'm gonna call a span and then say services. Okay, so here we are, our services is here. Amazing. But since we have this ID of services, I'm going to go into the nav bar and then put it also alongside the services, so that if I come here and I click on service, it will bring me to where we have our services. I hope you saw that here. If I click on this, it brings me down. So let's code our services session quickly. Now that we are done with the title here, we have this sales divisions. Okay, so just as we did for the previous ones, I'm going to do the same thing here with sales divisions, but this time around I'm going to put an outer div because I want to arrange them in a particular way, and so I'm going to give it a class of services underscore underscore service. Okay, and so for the service we have 6 of them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm first going to write the heading, which is a h3, and with this h3 I'm going to duplicate it. I think we have 6 of them, so I need 6 h3s, and then inside of it I'm going to give the name for that particular session or for that particular service. Okay, so the first one I had for mine, I'll just quickly fill up this portion so that we can continue. Now that I have this, the next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to put the descriptions under it, and it's a p tag, and then over here too I'm going to put a dummy test, that is lorem. Here we are. So we have 6 of them, and then all of it having test also. So that is what we have done. but unfortunately there is a mistake, because I was supposed to put each of them in a separate div. I was supposed to put each of them in a separate div. So that is what I'm going to do now. That is what I'm going to do now. I'm going to put each of them into a separate div, like this, like this, like that. Okay, so service, amazing. Yeah, but let me just make this one services and then main. Okay, and then under it, I'm going to put each of them into a separate div here. So I'll say a div with a class name of services underscore underscore service, and then I'll just come here and then close the div like that. Go here and then put the div at the bottom. Come here and then here we are. I'll go back here and go back here, and then I'll just take this one down. There's a mistake somewhere. Okay, so open this div, come here, take this one down, and then come for the div and then position the div just under it. So that is it. I have had all of it have a separate div, so they are all placed in their individual divs, and that is exactly what I wanted to do. So now if I come here and I click on this, I'm taken to the services area. That is all we need for that. Quickly, let me create a gallery. So the gallery area also, just as we did for the about and the services, if you check, the gallery was also having the same thing. So I'll put in the code for gallery quickly here, because I don't want us to delay time. So those are code for gallery, and then the next one that I'm going to add is the modal, because whenever we open the we click on it, it shows a modal, and then it shows us the image, which has a close button for us to close. And so that is the code for the modal. And over here too, we're supposed to use some images, and for the images also you have to add it inside of your asset folder. So when I come here, I'm going to put all my images here. So I'm going to create a folder and then call it my maybe gallery. Okay, so works, the works that I want to show. And so I'll just open this folder and then put my pictures, exactly the ones that I used. I'm gonna paste them here. Okay, and that one is quickly done. So when I come here, I will see my images showing up here. But for the looks of it, we will do that once we get to the CSS section. So that was all for the gallery. The next section of the code after the gallery is the theme. So for the theme section also, I'm going to put a comment to show that this is the theme part. And then with that one also, because of time, I'll just put the code quickly here. You have all the time to pause the video and to write this code for yourself. So now that we have the themes also, and that one also for the images, yes, exactly, this is what I was talking about. Now if you check here, you realize that we have there was supposed to be an image here, but because the image was not found, they are showing us the alt, that is the alternative text that we added to the image, and then showing us this one, telling us that they couldn't find the image. Now when you come here, you realize that I have the image source here and the alt here. So because this one was not able to show, the alt, which is my name, is what is showing here. And now the reason why they are not seeing it is that they went to the asset and then team, and they couldn't find what I'm talking about. That is why it couldn't show the image. So when I come into my asset, I realize that I don't even have, I have the asset truly, but this team, there's nothing like a folder called team here. That is why it couldn't find it. So I'm going to create a folder called team, and then I have to, inside of the team, put the pictures that I'm looking at over there. So I'm going to just add my pictures here. And once I add my pictures here, now it will be able to find the pictures, and it will show it for me. That is exactly what I was referring to. Now, just on our main site, we just have to come to the contact us session immediately after the team. So the contact us session is what we are going to do next. But before that, let me also tell you that inside of the team, we have an ID now. So we can copy this ID and then go to the nav and then add that ID to the team. And then we have to copy that, create an ID for gallery, and bring that one also. So when I come to gallery, there's an ID here. I'll copy it, come to the nav bar, and then paste that ID here. So that once I come up here and then I click on team, it will take me to where the team is. That is exactly what I'm talking about. So quickly, let's add the contact us session over here. I will just say comment and then contact, right? Okay, and now I'll just save my work so that it is formatted nicely and neatly for me. So I'll put in the code for the contact session over here. Code for the contact session is here. And then if you check here, you realize that we have divided it into two parts where we have the map. So this is where the map comes, and then the form also starts from here. So you see that we are using the form tag, and this is the portion where we have the form. This is the portion where we have the form. So when we come to our new, this is the form, and then everything is showing amazingly here. Now we should also have an ID for the contact so that I can be able to add it to the top, to the nav bar. So that is what I've copied, and then I'm taking it up to the nav bar and then onto contact, so that once I come to the top here and then I click on contact, it takes me to the contact section here, and here I am. I'm at the contact section, but I always have to scroll up, and that is what I don't like. And so I added a back to top button, so that whenever I click on the back to top button, it takes me straight up. But before that, let's look at the last component section here, which is called the footer. And inside the footer, I have added the back to top section. So let me just bring that code also, because I don't want this lesson to be very long. That is why I have to make it snappy this way. Okay, so now to the footer. I have it here, but over here we are closing the main here. So I have added the footer here, and here is the footer, and we will be using, there's the back to top section over here. So I have used the class called back to top. And then if we come onto our new page, you realize that we should be seeing it here. So we have all of our social media handles, the links all here, and then it's all positioned very nicely. The next thing that I want to be doing is that we will be Sure, sure. I think now we have it all. Now, this is how a website looks without CSS. Uh-huh. It is not nice. This is just HTML and it is not nice. So, in our next lesson, I will be talking to you and introducing you to CSS, and then inside it, I will talk to you about how we are going to use CSS to make this website, what we are seeing now, look like this. And so, don't forget that this is a free section, and the way you can also support us and show us your love is by subscribing to our channel, like this video, and share this video to your friends who also wants to learn coding. Without much ado, I'm so much glad to have you here. Don't forget to visit our website, the future session, where you have all the codes just as one place for you. I love you. Want to see you in the next lesson. So, bye bye for now. Or this is how a website looks without CSS. Yes. And for just a recap, but nonetheless, we have this home working. If I click here, it takes us to the about section. If I click here, it takes us to the services section. And then if I click here, it takes us to the gallery. And you see this part is fully working. Amazing. So let me just take you through a little bit of how we created this code, or what these sections of the code means. So with the gallery, what we did here is that we created a main div, which has a heading of our gallery, which is in H3, and then we have a P which describes something about the H3, and then we opened a new. Now you realize that we have a horizontal line over here showing just right here, just here, and it goes just like that. That is the HR, and then we opened the main div and added lots of divs with an image, with an image, and then we have an alternate text also. So all the images, and I told you that for the images you should be able to see it added into your asset. So make sure that you add all the images that you are going to be using inside of your asset folder. Here we are with our images, so that it will be able to find it. If not, let's assume that I just come to your asset folder, and then I delete one of the pictures. Let's say I delete one of them, and so when I come back here, you realize that just this particular one is not found, and so it says that it is giving me this, telling me that the image was not found. But if I come back here and then I bring the image back, you now realize that I come to gallery and I'm able to see it. Now there's nothing telling us that the image was not found. So that is the only thing that we added into this code. And then we added a modal here. This modal tells us that when the person clicks on the image, it should be able to see the image just like this over here. When I click on it, it should come like this. But this function, we are going to be using JavaScript to do it. That is why when I click on it now, it is not showing anything. And for here, the only thing we did is put a div here, and then for that, inside of the div, we have a close button. So when you check here, when I click on this, there's this close here. Amazing. And it is on the right side because we use a span, and then we use the span to direct it to be at any particular place. It becomes an inline element, and we can position it at whatever place we want on the line. And then after the span, we have another div which shows the image. So it picks the image from here, giving the image ID. Now when we come here, we have the image here, and so it picks this image, assign this ID to the image, we did this with the JavaScript. So once we get to JavaScript, we will be able to see why all of these things happened. And then we also use JavaScript to assign an ID to all of the pictures, so that once we click on the pictures, we can see the alternating text under it, and we are seeing it as the caption. And with this one also, we didn't add the caption here, we added the captions using JavaScript. And then the next thing that I want you to look at is that of the themes section. Inside of the theme also, just as we have been doing, we have the main div with an ID and a class, and then we have the heading, which is in h2, and then a little bit of text in a p tag just under the heading, and then we have an hr also, a horizontal line to divide it. Aside that, we have a main div, and then inside of it we have 3 separate divs. Each div has an image on the top. Over here you see the image on the top, and so this is the image, and then under the image we have an h3 showing the person's name, and then we have a p tag showing the person's position, and then we have a button which has the text contact, and then it also has an icon which is an envelope. This particular one has an envelope icon, and the text is contact. And you realize that it is underlined because we want it to have a function that once it is clicked, it does a particular thing. So we assigned a link. That is why we place the content or the text inside of an anchor tag, so that it becomes a link. And we just did that 3 times, changing the pictures, the names, and the titles. We come to the contact section, where we also have a class and an ID. We have a big container, we have a smaller container with the name, and then all of this. And then we have various rows. Over here we have put in a row here, so we have a div that contains the address, and then we have a div that contains the email, and a div that contains the phone number. And then we also have this particular div which has a Google map, because we are not on the internet. That is why you are not seeing it. That is why it says no internet. But once I put a connection to the internet, if you go to the one that we deployed, you realize that you see Google map, and that is the code in here. Aside that, we have a form on the other side which has a name, label, and an input. And then we have another form for email, we have another form for subject, we have another form for message over here. And then we have a loading here. We have a confirmation message over here, that is a sent message. And we also have a button at the end here, a button that is used to send a message. Then we close our form, we come to the footer section. Inside of the footer we have 5 links over here, and each link has an icon here. Each link has an icon, so we have the icons showing over here. So if you realize here, we have the icon for Facebook, Instagram, we have the icon for LinkedIn, YouTube, and all those. And then under it we have a div that has our copyright details, and then a credit to the developer. That is what we have done here. And then down here I have one div which has a go to top, and then we have on clicks. The on click functionality is done with JavaScript, and for now, because you have not gone to JavaScript, that is why I have not spoken about it. But over here we have an icon which is supposed to show, but we are not seeing the icon because I have added a style here, an inline styling, and I'm saying that the color of the icon should be white. So it is white, and that's why we are not seeing. If I should make the icon red now, we should be able to see the icon showing right here. The icon is now showing here. So if I change it back to white, then we are not going to see it because it is showing here, but it is on a white background, so we are not seeing. But once we are done, we will give it a background of green, and wherever you go, we will be able to see it. That is what we are going to be doing with CSS. So that is all that we did in this lesson. This is it on the full screen, this is it on a mini screen, and that is exactly what we have done. So this is HTML only. We have done everything, but we need CSS to style it, to give it style. And that is all we are going to do for this section. For now, just subscribe, share, invite people to also watch these videos, and we'll be so glad to help. We are so much glad. If you have any questions, bring it on to us on WhatsApp, onto our platform, put it in the comment section for us to enjoy and know that we have active learners just like you. God bless you. See you in the next lesson.